for the latest news from the world of radio every Sunday morning at 10:30 on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal and online at ckut.ca.
Welcome, everyone, to the International Radio Report for Sunday, February the 23rd. My name's Sheldon. I'm here with Jill. We thank you for tuning into our show. We are here on CKUT every Sunday morning with 30 minutes of news and information from the world of radio. We have a selection of stories from here in North America and stories from around the world for you today. So we'll get going with things right away, starting off with news about the 38th annual NASWA SWL Festival. We've been talking about this now for several weeks. It is coming up April the 25th and the 26th. It is the 38th annual event. It's going to be an in-person and a Zoom event, so a hybrid event. 2 days of sessions about the latest developments in the radio listening hobbies. Schedule events coming out shortly. They're still working on lining up the various speakers and what have you. There is an in-person element to it this year. Some people are attending in person at the Holiday Inn Express and Guest Suites in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania. That is limited, though, to a maximum of 65 people. So if you are planning on attending in person, you should get to the hotel registration and fest registration quickly. Hopefully that 65 in-person number will fill in quickly. So for all of the information on the event, we recommend checking out the Winterfest, SWL Fest website. That is swlfest.com. You can find the registration form there, either for Zoom or in person, and you can also get the hotel reservation information on there as well. If you have any questions about it, you can email them swlfest@naswa.net. And we'll have more updates as information becomes available in the weeks ahead. We hope to see many of you participating in that event, April the 25th and the 26th.
And we have a special test broadcast coming up from Texas Radio Shortwave on March 1st and 2nd on 6070 kilohertz and 9670 kilohertz. So this is via Terry Colgan in Austin, Texas. Listener reports needed. In addition to our regular monthly programs, we'll conduct test broadcasts to improve our reach. Listener reports are crucial in determining whether we should adjust our schedule for April and beyond. So the test schedule is on 6070 kilohertz for Europe, Saturday, March 1st at 1600 UTC and Sunday, March 2nd at 1200 UTC. The purpose, we are considering replacing 3955 kilohertz due to severe audio interference from another transmitter at channel 292. If 6070 kilohertz provides better reception, we'll make the switch. And to North America, 9670 kilohertz, Sunday, March 2nd at 23 UTC. Purpose, we are considering replacing our early morning UTC transmissions with late night ones if the latter provides better reception. Listener reports and special QSL cards will be issued. We'll issue a unique verification for accurate reports on these test transmissions and our standard QSL for regular programming. We don't know what the test QSL will look like, but we promise it will be a great addition to your collection. So to submit a report, listen for at least 20 minutes and email your reception details to Texas Radio Shortwave at protonmail.com. Your feedback is essential. Thanks for tuning in and supporting Texas Radio Shortwave. So that's going to be an interesting broadcast to listen to.
Yeah, I think trying to go to a later broadcast to North America is probably a good choice.
Yeah.
So do help them out. This is a regular station that does have regular programming, unique programming every month, and separate QSL cards every month. So they are asking for your help. So please check those out if you're available at those times and frequencies. and we'll have it all posted up on our site for you to check out as well. Next, we have some more news on the lobbying to keep AM radios in cars. This comes from Cameron Coates of Radio Inc. Automakers spent $26.73 million lobbying against AM radio in 2024. As the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act roars back into life in the 119th Congress, new lobbying disclosures reveal the full extent of automakers' 2024 financial efforts to oppose the inclusion of AM radio in vehicles as a mandated safety feature. According to lobbying disclosures, automakers spent a total of $26.73 million on lobbying efforts related to the bill throughout the year. Spending peaked in the first quarter at $7.4 million, followed by $7.06 million in second quarter, $5.84 million in quarter three, and $6.43 million in quarter four. When it failed to pass in the previous congressional session, lobbying efforts intensified in Q4 2024 from both automakers and radio industry stakeholders. The bill, which seeks to mandate AM access in all vehicles as a critical safety feature, was reintroduced in the new Congress as automakers continued their push to remove the long-standing broadcast standard from dashboards. General Motors led all automakers in lobbying expenditures in the fourth quarter, committing more than $4 million to efforts aimed at influencing policymakers. The company spent $3.58 million in-house, placing it among the top 10 corporate lobbying spenders of the quarter. GM also enlisted numerous firms, including Fierce Government Relations, $100,000, Richetti Incorporated, $100,000, Missy Edwards Strategies, $30,000, BL Partners Group, $30,000, Polaris Hutton Group, $40,000, Resolution Public Affairs, $50,000, Elevate Government Affairs, $50,000, and DS2 Group, $20,000. Toyota followed with $1.225 million in-house and $90,000 paid to Invariant LLC. Honda increased its spending to $520,000 in-house, while Ford spent $50,000 with Alpine Group Partners. Electric vehicle manufacturers, which have led the charge in removing AM radios from their models, remained active in lobbying against the bill. Tesla spent $190,000 in-house, while Rivian, one of the earliest automakers to phase out AM access, allocated $40,000 to lobbying efforts. While the original bill was never scheduled for a floor vote, it enjoyed widespread bipartisan support in both House and endorsements from over 250 lawmakers and 125 organizations. In the Senate, the Act of 2025, led by Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Ed Markey, has already secured 47 co-sponsors. The bill was reintroduced in the House by Representative Gus Bilirakis from Florida and Republican Frank Pallone of New Jersey. On the same day, it cleared the Senate Commerce Committee. Why don't they just spend this money on putting the AM radio in the car instead of spending these millions and millions of dollars to not have to put them in? That doesn't make sense to me.
That's exactly what I was thinking as I was seeing all that money spent. It's like, oh, please just spend it on putting AM radios.
I guarantee it's going to cost less to put the radio in than to do this.
Yeah.
But man, they are just so dead set against it. It boggles the mind that much money is being spent to simply get rid of the radio.
Yeah, I think they really want to remove it because they really want to remove all the shielding that they probably are putting in actually right now. And that would save a lot of money per car. And I guess it's worth it for them to try to prevent this from happening. So in our next story, we have U.S. legislators push back against new fees on local radio. This is by Cameron Coates of Radio Inc. Congress is marking World Radio Day in a particularly meaningful way. A bipartisan group of 114 U.S. House members has reintroduced the Local Radio Freedom Act, a resolution opposing the imposition of new performance fees, royalties, or taxes on local radio stations. The resolution, led by Representative Steve Womack, a Republican, and Kathy Castor, a Democrat, continues efforts in previous congressional sessions to prevent additional financial burdens on broadcasters. The last iteration of the Local Radio Freedom Act received overwhelming support from over 250 bipartisan members of Congress. Representative Womack remarked, "Local radio is integral to my life, as it is for many of those in Arkansas and across America. It's the heartbeat for communities, allowing free access to local sports, news, and entertainment. But most importantly, it's a lifeline when disaster strikes. The Local Radio Freedom Act opposes charges that could threaten the viability of these local businesses that many people rely on. The radio is a top trusted choice for receiving local news, weather alerts, traffic updates, community opportunities, and so much more. It is particularly important for my home state of Florida, where it provides critical information to residents and visitors during storms and after times of crisis via the Florida Public Radio Emergency Network. That is why I am a proud sponsor of the Local Radio Freedom Act, a resolution that reaffirms Congress support for local radio stations and opposes new fees or taxes on local free broadcast radio." The National Association of Broadcasters President and CEO Curtis Legate praised the initiative, stating, "Americans depend on the local news, traffic updates, severe weather alerts, entertainment, and sports they can freely access through the local radio stations. Imposing a new performance fee on top of the hundreds of millions that local stations already pay in copyright and streaming fees would severely hinder our ability to provide these free and essential services to our listeners." LRFA is a direct retort to the American Music Fairness Act, which was reintroduced in the Senate earlier this month. AMFA, which has failed to gain traction in two previous Congresses, would require over-the-air broadcasters to pay royalties on par with streaming services, which do not provide a free public service like AM/FM. If a broadcast performance royalty were implemented, fees for broadcasters could be substantial. A decade ago, the Congressional Budget Office warned of high costs, a concern reinforced by current royalty structures for digital platforms. As discussed by broadcast attorney David Oxenford of Wilkinson Barker Nauer, LLP, while webcasting royalties are calculated per performance, a broadcast royalty would likely be based on a percentage of revenue. Comparison can be made to SiriusXM, which pays 15.5% of revenue in sound recording royalties. Given that satellite radio rates factor in non-music content, a pure music station could face even higher percentages. So, having fees on radio could, especially in today's market where radio is maybe in a fragile state for many of them financially, it could make a difference between you exist or you might disappear tomorrow.
I think some stations have seen it coming and are expecting it to happen. And we've seen stations go up for sale, stations being closed down, stations turning in their license. I think this is all part and parcel of it. Running any business is expensive these days. To add a major fee on top of everything else right now just might be the breaking point for some of these radio stations, unfortunately. So we'll have to keep a watch on this, see where it goes. Hopefully they're able to decide to keep the radio stations operating and not hit them with this additional burden.
So what's happening with our sun? Well, the sun has been somewhat active this week. There were quite a few little times when there was some geomagnetic unrest and some small flares that happened through the week. But overall, it was kind of interesting. And now the big question that spaceweather.com is asking is, we've probably reached solar maximum. And in the previous cycles, there were two peaks that would happen. And now we have one. So they're kind of wondering, is a second peak coming soon? Who knows? They're not all like that, but most of them have been. So we're expecting maybe another peak in the next few months. So for the week ahead, of course, conditions look for now rather quiet, but there are a couple of sunspots that are capable of M-class solar flares. So there could be some geomagnetic unrest once again. Sunspot number 123, the solar flux 178. And if you want to witness propagation in real time, you got to turn on a radio and listen.
I'm David Bachner of Guelph, Ontario, and I get my weekly radio news on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
There were some interesting reports this week of a pirate radio station calling itself Radio Canada International. Not the real Radio Canada International, obviously, but a pirate station claiming to be. This was reported by Walt Salminiw on HF Underground. HF Underground is a great site to go and visit on a regular basis to look for information about pirate broadcasts that are being heard often in real time. So it can tip you off as to where these stations are. Excellent reception on February the 20th at 0409 UTC. Says it's the same pirate with an extreme anti-Trump diatribe and critique of Americans who elected the, quote, orange-faced monstrosity. Now, they gave some details of what was being heard. Obviously, whoever was broadcasting this pirate was very much against the current U.S. president and the policies and decisions that he's been making. A lot of the music was just really, very meaningful in their choice of songs. There were comments by a DJ, things like Republicans have been inbreeding with the lunatic fringe. Let's be clear, Putin started this war. Europe has to back Ukraine 100%. Announcer was talking about free speech about Ukraine, and also more about Trump. The interesting thing was right at the end of the broadcast, a Radio Canada International Making Friends Around the World ID. And this sounded like an official recording from an actual RCI broadcast when they were on shortwave. And then if you remember listening to RCI, they had this little electronic interval signal that they used. Well, the pirate used that at the end of the broadcast as well. Choice of music on the program was quite meaningful. We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel, Revolution by the Beatles, Land of Confusion by Genesis, and American Idiot by Green Day, and Know Your Enemy by Green Day. So obviously this pirate was not happy about what's going on in the United States. So always fun to check out the pirate stations. You never know what you're going to hear. Some of them are just, a mix of music and whatever. But this one obviously had a very pointed theme to it. So check out HF Underground. This station was mainly being heard in Western North America. There didn't seem to be any reports from the eastern part of North America. So we don't know, of course, where it might have been located. We don't know who was behind this broadcast. But do keep a watch on hfunderground.com for other pirate radio activity, not only in North America, but in Europe as well. Some really interesting stations on the air over there as well. And that website will give you all the details of where to go looking for them when they're on the air.
Yep, and if you want to tune in to pirate radio stations, remember in North America, 6850 to 7000 kilohertz, usually mostly on the weekends, sometimes in the weekdays, but mostly on the weekends and holidays, absolutely. So whatever happens. In Europe, 6200, 6300 kilohertz is the frequency range. And sometimes they're on the low frequency range when propagation isn't right. But definitely, there's a lot of very interesting pirates right now, especially with what's happening around the world and in North America. So check it out. So we have a couple of interesting news for shortwave radio. First, the Voice of Turkey English service returns. From Alan Rote, Eddington, UK, via Glenn Hauser's World of Radio I.O. group, as first reported on Monday the 17th in the World of Radio I.O. group mailing list by John Jurasek and Craig Tyson. The English service of TRT, the Voice of Turkey, has resumed their programming. That is, the broadcasts are no longer simply relays of TV audio of TRT World. I listened on Tuesday and also confirmed that the regular English presenters are back with Voice of Turkey programming. It seems that the program schedule may have changed slightly compared to what was heard before their hiatus, with unscripted twists of fate previously heard on Wednesdays and a new program the first quarter of the millennium. English frequency schedule 1330 to 1425 on 13635, 1730 to 1825 on 9660, 1930 to 2025 on 6050, 2130 2225 on 9610, from 2300 to 2355 on 5960. This one comes pretty well in the east coast of North America. And 04 to 0455 on 6125 and 7285. So kind of a good news to have the Voice of Turkey back, because having the feed of the TRT World audio was not very good. And we have a sad news if you're a QSL guy or girl out there. NHK Radio Japan ceasing issuing QSL cards. So this is from various sources. NHK World Japan has been issuing verification cards or confirmation cards to people who have notified us that they are listening to our broadcasts. Please be advised that we have decided to stop issuing the verification cards. The cards will be sent for confirmation on broadcasts up to March the 20th, 2025. Thank you for your understanding and continued support. You can continue to submit your comments and requests to English language services through the Contact Us page on our website. Your feedback will be used to improve our broadcasts and services. So, one less station issuing QSL cards.
Yeah, they always had a really nice selection of cards, different ones at different times of the year. And I know I have a fair number of them myself, but many stations have done this. They just don't have the time and staff to do it and the money to do it. So this is just another one adding to that list. QSL cards don't really have the importance that they used to have decades and decades ago when stations were first going on the air, and they really wanted people to contact them and let them know, are our frequencies good? Is there interference? How is the signal? That sort of dropped off over the years as they were able to have professional monitors checking their signals in different parts of the world. But QSL collectors really liked these things, these cards, to add to their collection, would write the reception reports, and the stations did the courtesy of responding to them. Well, that has dropped off dramatically, and as we said, Japan is now another country that's decided to cease that service, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, and they had such beautiful cards. I have quite a few of them here. Always very beautiful. So try it. You got until March 20th to get your QSL.
So usually on February the 21st, we have a special broadcast from Radio Amrung. It's the Frisian community. It's a little island off the coast of Germany. And they've had a broadcast for many years on 15215 kilohertz. So this week we were thinking, well, they're going to be there, but there was no news about it. And actually a ham radio operator has just contacted the Frisian newspaper. And they said, well, you know what? We have no news this year of a special broadcast. If you guys remember, this broadcast had Frisian language, German language, and English language greetings all over the world But this year, it's probably gone. Might be the end of this special broadcast, unfortunately.
And we have upcoming ham radio contests.
There are a couple things coming up next weekend. One is quite a major event. It is the first one is organized by the American Radio Relay League. It is the ARRL International DX Contest. It's 0000 Zulu March 1st to 2359 Zulu March the 2nd. It's 160 through 10 meter bands, no WARC bands, and the mode is single sideband or phone. So there will be voice activity on the ham bands all through all the major bands for that 2-day event, and it's attracting international attention.
Yeah, it's a very interesting contest. There's several different contests like that during the year, and if you want to hear countries or exotic locations that you don't hear very often, well, the amateur bands during a contest are a great place to listen. Next, we have the Nova Scotia Amateur Radio Association contest on March 2nd. There's a morning session from 1200 UTC to 1600 UTC. There's an afternoon session from 1800 to 2200 UTC. The band is 80 meters, and it is CW, SSB, and Digital. And with that, we are out of time.
We thank you for tuning into our show. We're here every week, every Sunday morning at 10:30 Eastern, 15:30 UTC. And we have ways for you to reach us. Our email address is radioreport@yahoo.com. You can listen to our show through the CKUT website. We do apologize. There have been some issues with the streaming at the CKUT station. So if that's a problem and you can't hear the show live when you're trying to tune into the stream, check the archives at ckut.ca. We also have our Facebook group, International Radio Report. We have one new member this week. We welcome Matthew to the group. And where you can find our show with all the details and the links to the stories is on our YouTube channel. Find us at youtube.com/@IRR, and you can subscribe to the channel there. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you again next Sunday morning with our next edition of the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.